All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Monday, November 11th. And happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. Quick video for the day. We'll just kind of go over some things that caught my eye today. First of all, pretty tight range. It's a couple things to kind of take away from today. The S&P opened on the lows today and basically rallied throughout the session. So here's the numbers for today. There was definitely some negative breath, more names that were declining. You could see NASDAQ almost caught up. NASDAQ, I think, at one point this morning. Let me see if I can find what the numbers that I had about midday today. Yep, here we go. We could probably overlay this, and you could see how we kind of improved on the day. What happened here? There we go. That should work. All right. So let me just open this up. For the S&P, we had decliners 357, so that did get better. Only 308. You could see advance obviously increase there, but yeah, really, I think on the Nasdaq side, there was 1,508 decliners, and that number lessened to 1,374. The Dow got a little bit better as well, 9 advancers. So, what I'm saying here is market breadth improved over the day. Overall, this was not bad considering that China really got hit pretty hard overnight. The Hang Seng was down 2.6%. Shanghai was 1.7%. Most of Asia, even Taiwan as well as South Korea, was down overnight. So I think that's pretty good progress. You could see that Europe was down as well. They recovered off the lows a little bit. The CAC actually finished in green from starting the day red. So, nice in Europe as well to kind of come back. And basically, this kind of goes. Sorry, I am getting to a point here. My point is that I think it's really important to pay attention to what this market does when we start the day red or when we have a little bit of a choppy day. I think that there's a lot of money on the sidelines. Even though the market has been up 5 weeks in a row, right? So it's been a pretty tremendous run at this point, but there's still no sell signal, right? I mean, one of the things that I keep talking about is the 5 period moving average. This is really an easy way to tell you whether or not you want to be kind of in equities or be a little bit more cautious. But as the price stays above the 5 period moving average, which it's done now since the middle of October, I would say that this is a very strong trend that we've got going on here in the near term. The other thing that I mentioned in the weekend video to members is that there is a decent distance with this 5 period moving average above the 20. So usually at some point these things come and they meet one another. But trying to predict that is very difficult. I would just continue with the game plan of saying we've been on a tremendous run. Make sure that you're locking something up. Again, I'm not giving any advice or recommendations, but this is kind of my train of thought as we get maybe a bit more extended above the 5, above the 20. But there's still, even though you kind of can maybe foresee that this is extended here, that we just haven't had a sell signal yet. And I think even if we do, like we started the day, down 25 basis points to finish down 9, and you could even see us, rallying above value for the day. That people want to kind of buy the dip, right? We're not really going much lower off the open. So again, this is a change in I don't want to say bias, but it's basically like a little bit of a paradigm shift in terms of we're not really seeing sellers come in and take profits. Remember months ago we saw that, back in the summertime mainly. If we would open up 25 basis points, we would get hit hard on the open and profit taking would be in. Now it seems like if we start the day down 20 basis points, there's buyers that are coming in to the market. So I think a couple of things that I talked about, just a couple quick data points from last week. TLT had the largest weekly outflow of the year. TLT, if you're not familiar, is the long bond ETF. $1.2 billion of outflows, and gold had the largest outflow in 3 years on Friday. Just a 1 day outflow. Had the largest outflow in 3 years. So it kind of tells me that people are taking money. It's not, the money isn't just being rotated around amongst sectors. There's actually money coming out of those risk off areas and going into the market. So I think that's why we're also kind of seeing this market continue to grind higher as we are. So yeah, first down day. Even though I was actually hoping for a day where we were down like a 0.5%, to be honest, just so that we kind of cool off a little bit. So, down 9 basis points, not a big deal at all. If we look at our sectors to see what outperformed for the day, interesting home builders. You have DHI reporting tomorrow. Keep in mind, ITB was one of the worst performing sectors last week with the move in interest rates. So if we look at this chart, I don't think there's going to be. I think it's, we'll see. DHI is a decent component of this ETF, but it's hanging in there. Remember, it took out that VPOC. That was the sell signal for ITB, right? Basically, I put this on Twitter saying, "Hey, this is the place to take profits." Certainly was. And again, version point of controls, VPOCs are really, really good for that. So that was your best performing sector today in terms of percentage change from, and I think overall ITB was up 1.5% on the day. Aerospace and defense, I think that was mostly Boeing, big move in Boeing. Some traders caught this move, very nice move, one of the biggest increases in Boeing in months, I believe. Keep in mind there is a VPOC up here. I think that's on the 1 hour. So I think what we were saying is 370, right around 372 and a half. It did sell off a little bit, so that might come into play for tomorrow. That's where I would be looking to take some profits on that announcement. That is again 372 and a half. So I'm just looking at some headlines crossing the tape. Looks like 10-cent music is out. We did see some call activity in that name today. What's the symbol for this thing? It's not TMO. 10-cent music. SE also reports, and then we have JD later in the week. 10-cent music. TME. I was gonna say TMO. Let's see what that name's doing. Like I said, there was a decent amount of calls, out of the money calls that were going up in this one. Doesn't look like there's any major reaction. Yet it looks like they beat here 74 cents versus 60 and 6.51. Yeah, so it looks like good results. 10-cent music. Music third quarter paying users 35 and 0.4. I don't know what the whisper number was there. Okay, so we'll go through just a couple other things, but mainly I wanted to illustrate. I was talking about this at the end of the day. It all depends on what you think we're doing and what your time frame is. But if today I thought seeing us rally from the bottom of value to the top of value, I thought that was a good place to take targets, like for intraday type trades, day trading, or even short-term swings. So again, the value area is a really, really good guide to where you want to be basically putting on risk versus taking it off. And also like not trading sometimes, right? If you're looking at, hey, do I want to be adding trades here? Sometimes, if you've got resistance right in front of you, it's sometimes I kind of look at things always in terms of risk reward. Now we did close right at the top of value, and it looks like we're trying to actually get up there. So I don't know, maybe we do rally overnight because we're above value. 3085 is support for the week. Obviously, we started the week in value, so 3085 is going to be resistance, and also looks like we're starting the new session here above value, and that's 3087. So, two late day positive things when you look at that 1 hour bar as well as the 5 minute in S&P. All right, so some names, some of the things that I was trading today. I put on a trade in Sony, which I thought was a pretty good setup late in the day. I was able to take that trade off because it's December, which is going to be front month. Remember, November, or at the end of this week is November option expiration. Make sure that you go through your positions now. Always in the beginning of the week, I always talk about either getting rid of positions, rolling what I call killing positions, rolling them, or if you want to keep them on, you have a lotto play on. Unless you've got some type of a call spread type trade or you're selling premium, something like that. But for the most part, I never wait kind of to the end of the week when you have options expiration. Always want to be, especially like anything that's like residual swing, that has some value to it. I always roll my positions out. Because of course you have the biggest theta decay, right, for front month and especially the last week before options expiration. So what did we do today? So Sony, yeah, this was the setup. We saw some calls which brought my attention. I haven't looked at Sony in a while. So I got out of all of the December calls on this big move. I thought this was a really nice, cute little play here into the 20-day moving average. So almost back to 52-week highs. So I took December off and I put a few January calls on for this one. I also got out of my Beyond Meat short for almost full profits. A great way to play this name, I think, now that it's been trending down, is to sell call spreads. Right, I keep those call spreads somewhat narrow, like $5 wide, and as long as it doesn't, if it continues to go down, considering how expensive the options, right, I'm taking advantage of how expensive the options are. So by selling premium, you could actually make some decent money as long as it continues to go in your favor, and you could do basically go out of the money in those. I started a PayPal position today too. It was a name that we were looking at the end of last week. Still kind of buried below the 200-day moving average, but we've seen some repeat calls in there, which kind of just twisted my arm to get involved in this one. Another name that I was in, it's good to talk about a loser. Sometimes when you look at these charts in the beginning of the day, Boston Scientific, we saw a lot of next week's calls go up. But the implied volatility did not jump when those calls went up, so I'm not sure what they were doing with those. But if you look at this candle, how it closed on the day, and of course I looked at it at the end of the day, and my whole thought process was, hey, it took out a VPOC here, it is digesting, and maybe it bounces on the top of value, but it closed in value, and that's for me a no-no. It could just take one day to get back above, but I decided to dump the position. Watch now, it will go up. But it's good to talk about the losers as well, because as we know, we don't all have just winners, right? So just to go through a couple other charts that I was watching, I put what's called the limited risk reversal on in this Chipotle, which bounced on the 200-day moving average. Notice the VPOC is gone now, but I think it's good risk reward. You could set your stops at the 200-day moving average. A few other names that we saw some option activity in that I thought were interesting is Race. Remember, Ferrari had really good earnings, popped all the way up to 173. Well, it's basically has almost filled the gap for that. It's basically back to here. It's back to the 5-period moving average. Maybe it continues to come in. This would be, I think, an exceptional place to maybe go long, but maybe it holds in here. And they did buy some calls and sell some puts in Race today. Just a few other names that I thought were interesting. Deere, did a little bit of a consolidation here after hitting a 52-week high and right back at it. Honeywell caught my eye as well today, which has been a really strong industrial name. It did not get out to a 52-week high, but notice the little flag that it's putting in here and low volume as it goes through this flag. So that's a name that I'm definitely have my eye on. I actually have a position on. I'm long this name in the tactical portfolio. It's a cash portfolio that we've been that I put together a couple months back, which is starting to do really well. Microsoft, which I got long on Friday, slow mover. This thing's up 10 basis points, but it did make a new 52-week high today. Another name that I may move decently on earnings, which is next week, is Lowe's. Almost out to breaking out to 52-week highs. Had a nice day today. TEX, this was a group, the machinery group, I believe, was upgraded by Goldman last week. Now above the 200-day moving average. And again, out of the downtrend. You could use the 200-day moving average as your stop. I've got a couple other names. Software has been acting decently the last 2 days. TTD, one hell of a reaction today, up 11%. Remember, this reported earnings towards the end of last week and just had a really muted reaction to strong numbers. And it did very well today. I have one other name written down, but I can't read it. So, so that'll be the end of the video. So, guys, have a great night. Again, take one day at a time. Realize that we're continuing to in this grind mode, and I think it's really important to observe what happens. Of course, I would like to see us open down a little bit more in red territory to see if buyers really kind of come in, but we just don't have that yet. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.